Hey, we're going to expand on the previous example by utilizing the two empty co-founder slots that we have in the model. We're going to use one to track angel investors, and we're going to use another one for a early hire, let's say like the first employee, okay? And we'll see where that goes. So if you're looking at the screen, you'll see the previous version from the example earlier. And then what I did is just added the titles here for the co-founders, but we're not going to use it as co-founders right here. So let's say angel investors and a first hire, okay? Like a big first hire. So right now, all of the weights for these two are still 0. I haven't touched pretty much anything else. The only other thing I've changed here is I added another line. Let's assume that the angel round is going to be a $250,000 round, and we're going to have to value the angel round differently now. So maybe we still want to give 10% to the person who's securing the funding, and that's still going to be Dave, pretty much, who's doing all of it. But we want to set aside the amount for, say, the actual angel investors, so we can track that too. So what we're going to do is let's assume that the 250,000 is going to cost 20%. So we're going to make it 30% there. Okay. Now, in order to adjust everything, right? We want to adjust everything down accordingly. It was 20%, so we're going to adjust everything to be kind of like 80% down. We remember whatever's left here was split pretty much evenly between these two, right? So it's about 40, 54, so maybe about 27% on each side. Okay, so now what it's doing is we're kind of keeping everything relative to each other exactly the same, but because we added 20% to this angel funding, or to the angel investors here, we're kind of basically diluting all of the other milestones here now. All right. Now, so the only area where we need to make an adjustment right now for the angel investors, because they're only going to appear in the angel round. We're going to go there right now. So here in the angel round, there's 30% that's going to go towards this milestone, right? But we want 20% of it, or 2/3 of it, so 66.67%, going to the actual funding there, and then we want the rest split between the other two here, so that the other 33%, and we could just make it 33.33 and 20. So now it adds up to 100, and Dave and Ellen are still kind of doing the pitch deck and the pitching and closing the round. But now the angel investors here, they get 100% of the equity, the 20%. Okay, so we're going to be able to see that in the summary later. So now we basically effectively use one of the co-founder slots to track, maybe to use it as for the angel investors. So we see that the final split here, the angel investors get 20%. So now we know we did this correctly. All right. Now let's go back to the assumptions. Let's add something for the first hire. Okay. Now we look at here at the end. There's about 50 something percent, 54% going into the last phases. Maybe you guys are thinking about hiring the first hire when you go to public beta, and you want to set aside 5%. Maybe they're a superstar, rock star engineer, and by then you got a lot of traction. You can get them for 5% or maybe less. But let's say 5%. Okay, so you want to be able to put 5% of their contributions in the public beta or the growth stages, right? So let's put first hire contributions here in row 28, okay? And then let's go towards the last two growth things. And what we want to be able to do is, so 5% out of 54%, that's close to 10%, right? So you want to give him something close to 10% for each of these milestones here for the contributions. So that means you can knock some other things down accordingly. You can knock them down pro rata, or take 10% from all of them, for instance, right? And then do add 10% to the first hire. So let's say, all right, let's put 10% to the first hire on both of them. Now you see that there's errors right now because obviously none of these are adding up. Okay, but if we just reduce everything by 10% for all of the other ones, okay, we're gonna get the full 100% now. And the percentage of everything else relative to each other in terms of contributions are exactly the same. Okay, so basically you're diluting the rest by adding someone new here. Okay, you're adding 10% here, you take 10% from all of them. And now we don't have to adjust the other assumptions for the other co-founders here, because they're still going to make the same contributions. We still are using the same assumptions. Unless the roles are changing, then you want to change those, right? But for this example, we're not going to do that. And now let's do exactly the same for the last milestone. So we're going to go 10% down for all of these. So now we have the correct sum check. We're going to leave everything else the same. And so now all of these are in. What we're going to get is, we should expect that the angel investors are going to have exactly 20%, and we're going to see that the first hire should have a little over 5% of the equity stake here based on these assumptions now. So let's take a look. So here we look at the summary. We see that the 2 slots are being used by the 2 new additions now, right? And we'll see that, hey, the angel investors, they're getting 2/3 of the second round here, the angel funding round, but nothing else. And we see that their final split is 20%, which is correct. The first hire, hold on, let me see. I think I didn't include the weights of one of the things that they're doing. So let's see. 10%. Oh, I didn't put it into the first hire here. See. All right. So because I didn't put it into the first hire, actually Ellen got all the credit for the first hire contribution. So we got to make sure we fix that. So we got to put it all in the first hire. Okay, so now it's fixed. Now we should see a contribution in for the first hire. There we go. 5.4% for the first hire, and it's coming, and they're coming evenly in the last 2 milestones. All right, so we see that, and you'll see here cumulatively how it's earned. And here is going to be now the breakdown of how the each of the parties are earning their shares, right? So we see that the angel investor is getting all of its shares in the second phase, and then the first hire is getting it in the last 2 phases here. And here's the final recommended equity split. So this example is just to show you that you can use this Founders Pie calculator to account for kind of non-co-founders, right? If you have angel investors or advisors, you can put all the advisors in a group and set aside a certain amount of equity. And you can set aside some equity, say, for the first employee pool if you're going to treat them all pretty much the same. What we can't do is, if you're trying to put 2 categories of users, first hires and angels, in the same column, when they're going to be treated very differently. Okay, so if you have a group or some individuals that where you know how you want to treat their equity share and when they're coming in as a team, and it's going to be consistent, then you can use the Founders Pie model for that purpose as well.